super interesting new episode, including a new road trip here today on Autogefühl with Thomas and Leah, also with the BMW iX. This is the bigger brother to the BMW iX3, which we have recently also road tripped. And the interesting thing is, just before the iX3 was released, they still made an extensive facelift here for the iX, even with some huge battery upgrades. So they still somewhat believed in this vehicle here. And today we're going to show you how this vehicle here is in some ways better than the iX3, because this is packed full of luxury features and it also has a way higher price. But at the same time, it also reveals in which exact segments, in which features BMW has made a leap forward, even in a lower segment vehicle. So this car will both reveal how the iX3 still has potential in some ways and where the iX3 is really leading now, at least inside the BMW model portfolio. And today we're also going to talk about the future, what will be the successor of the iX, because the iX3 will get a newer, bigger brother. Everything of that now, including long-range test in the same way we did last time, and also charging test and so on, efficiency, range, everything you need to know with Thomas and Autogefühl in 4K, full screen, full length. Let's go with the iX. In the recent facelift, they made it here a little bit less beaver-ish in some ways. Here, illuminated kidney, but still this front grille is splitting opinions. And I honestly have to say, inside the BMW portfolio, this is my least favorite double kidney. Really gotta say that. And there the iX3 with the new Neue Klasse design, with the smaller double kidney, it just looks a little bit more elegant. Or what do you think about that? Then we have the frozen gray metallic color here. This matte color looks really stunning, and 22-inch wheels. You could go up to 23, but you would also start at 20-inch. And here, these 22-inch are already in the size, where does it say, 275 millimeters? Where does it stand? You can always read it on the tire. There it is, 275, and that is a disadvantage to the range. It looks stunning, yes, and the 23 are also that wide, but you can even get the 20-inch with 235 millimeters, and the 21-inch would be 255 millimeters, and the iX3 is 255 or 275, depending on the wheel size. So this will be a disadvantage as for the range, but of course it looks stunning with that vehicle. And here we also come to some design differences. Here, this area here, you know, it already led the way into this more monolithic design, yes, but it has a completely different rear than the all-new BMW iX3. And there are huge technology differences, because there are some things we are missing with the iX3, and even the Volvo EX60 or the Mercedes GLC EQ is offering that, for example, an air suspension. This vehicle here does offer air suspension. It's also optional, and also optional rear axle steering. So these are two technology things that are more in the luxury segment, where the iX is offering it, but Mercedes GLC, for example, in the same segment is also offering that. So this could be something which we maybe feel in driving, but there will be different things also while driving, where the iX3 again is better. That's interesting. But I think the design here in the rear with these wildly drawn lamps looks really cool, and especially in that special color here. But the technology difference indeed not only is with the suspension, it's also with battery and charging. So the smaller battery has received the biggest upgrade, and that is now at 95 kilowatt hours, 20 kilowatt hours more. Very interesting. This year is the one with the bigger battery that is at 109 kilowatt hours. So more or less a little bit tiny, just tiny, a little bit larger than the iX3. And this might, yeah, there we go. This one has a manual charging clamp, which is fine. You can also charge 22 kilowatt AC. However, here the DC charging power is as maximum 195 kilowatts, so around 200 kilowatt. And this is not the 800 volt charging. So that means here 35 minutes, 10 to 80% state of charge. And what we will try to do on our road trip is that we will probably not do the 10 to 80, but see, can we score like a very good value, like if we do, so for example, 15 to 50% or something, and then continue on the road, because it might be a more clever choice while being on the road and not spending too much time at the charging station. There, for example, the iX3 would be at 21 minutes. So that's clearly a more intelligent choice. If we go around one more time, I can show you, by the way, that in the front, we do not have a frunk we can open. That is again possible with the iX3. However, this one here has one of the funniest features where you can actually do this with the BMW logo. And it opens, and this is then the fill-in for the wiper fluid. In summertime only, you can also just use normal water. In wintertime, of course, you have to mix it then with water that cannot freeze in the wintertime. That is very important, of course. But yeah, funny stuff, definitely. And of course, there is this spectacular cleaning function of the front and the rear camera where everything gets sprayed around. And that is also a very famous feature when we do our like short reels. And yeah, it's very often discussed and also clicked. But I can really tell you, both me and also Leah, we have a lot to say about this vehicle here while driving. And it was such a revelation again to drive this vehicle once again. I mean, it's not new to me, yes. But now you can really feel the differences where the iX3 has made such a large step. But also we say, wait a minute, this feature the iX3 still needs to get. And yes, of course, I think you're waiting for this. Who will be the next successor of this vehicle? Because I already want to tell you that before we come to the interior. So BMW has already confirmed that there will be a new generation BMW X5, and that one will feature a BMW iX5. As hydrogen, but also as battery electric, and then there will still be combustion engines on one platform. So that is what we know so far. More I cannot tell you yet, but of course we will keep you updated with that very, very soon. And the question is then, of course, why would there still be a BMW iX? So we can say that when the iX5 is being launched, that the iX will more or less dissolve. Yes. But it will still run in some markets a little bit time parallel. In the US, they are canceling this one here now a little bit earlier, actually. But it might still be a very interesting car because there will be still some time left until the iX5 arrives. So if you want a large electric BMW right now, this might be the chance. And also if you compare the iX3, maybe you'll find the iX3 better in the offer and so on. But maybe there's a good offer from a dealer with an iX that it's just standing at a dealer. And also this one can be bought more or less right now. Or existing vehicles or even used vehicles, for example. That's why this review is also important. Because the iX3, they are selling so many of these, more than expected, that you have very long waiting times for the iX3. And for some they say, if I have to wait so long for the iX3, I might look for something different or at least in between, and after that I can maybe go for iX3. So that's why it's also very interesting to take a look here at the iX here today. Now to the interior. These are also the new seats here in the M Sport or M Sport Pro package. In this case M Sport Pro, but also normal M Sport you get it. And this here the leatherette, high-grade leatherette, also perforation. And this one also comes with seat cooling actually. The iX3 does not have that yet, but supposed to get it later. We heard, or we were fighting for. This one here has some gray microfiber as a contrast. This is really nicely done, and this integrated head restraint style. Note that the leatherette quality is already very good and soft. However, in the iX3, the new generation is even softer leatherette. That's also a very, these fine nuances, you only see that when you test these cars directly after each other. Beautiful in this facelift also here with the M imprinted here that we have the microfiber on the dashboard also in gray. So this is a really like a dream setup, I would say, visually, like this matte gray on the exterior and then the gray accentuations from the microfiber also here on the middle console. This is really, really cool. Special to the iX is that you have this front open middle console here, or non-middle console in the very front part. That's very interesting. And here adaptive cup holders, then two USB-C chargers. This is the inductive charging pad for the phone. Here you still have the older infotainment system iDrive controller, for example, manual volume jog. However, then the older infotainment system where you have the temperature unit right there, and in this new Neue Klasse setup, the screen moves closer to you, but the digital instruments go further away, which makes sense. This is form for this function. It's not bad here at all, but the new setup does make sense in a way. Head-up display also here as well. You can also get a glass roof. This one here in the way without, 189/602, enough headroom. Here, for example, you also have electric steering control of the column. And this is also the new M Sport steering wheel. So there you have, let's say, a normal steering wheel. You know that the iX also has these that don't have the spoke in the lower part. But here, some fancy this steering wheel because this is still like the classic style. The only difference is the surface material. Here it's animal skin. In the iX3 it's all animal-free material, which is actually, once again, softer because the technology has evolved. But overall, the build quality is really excellent. Also at the inside of the doors is very soft. There are the controls for the seats, by the way, at the inside of the doors, like Mercedes style, so to speak. But you really have to say you do feel that this is somewhat a segment higher. Although we're going to say, especially in the front cockpit, the build quality of the iX3 is also on a very high level, especially comparison to the X3, where we have some more criticism to say, definitely. But overall, I'm still very happy, and this vehicle here works very well, and especially here also with that recent facelift. So here the iX is at 4.97 meters or 185 inches, means 19 centimeters or 7 inches longer than the iX3. However, I wouldn't say that I have more legroom. I have sufficient legroom, but it's not that the iX has an advantage here. And also, I feel that the rear bench falls more backward here in the iX3 in comparison to the iX. What did I say now? It falls more backward here in the iX than in the iX3. Yeah, sometimes, of course, the names are so close that you sometimes confuse it. So I really have to say I sit better in the rear in the iX3. Headroom, however, no problem, 1.89 meters, 6'2". So you still have a lot of space here, you know, and this is also soft at the rear doors here and so on. And you have some more luxury features here as well, because these rear seats here can also be heated. So you have a heating here for the rear seats. And what I also haven't told you before is when in the front seat you activate the seat heating, you also have this heating additionally in the front, in the armrest, and also here in the middle console and so on. So this, yeah, there you see that some luxury features they have kind of reserved for the iX, and they are not offering that in the segment of the iX3. Then these things might again change when the new bigger brother of the iX3 is released very soon. Here, by the way, you can fold down this, and again, nice microfiber cover also for that. So once again, the build quality is pretty nice. Here, these the cup holders and so on. And yeah, you do have enough space, but here once again, you feel that the all new leatherette material by BMW is even a little bit softer. But this also has proven to be very durable. If you, for example, see BMW 5 Series G30, G31 vehicles there and follow the used car market, they still look like new even after 3 or 4 years. So first of all, here look at the indicators, and the funny thing here is that we now then have the indicators right here when the trunk is opened because of this special cut out the way. We recently had it in the Lucid Gravity, you know, where it has almost the same form in the rear. Very interesting, isn't it? And here, this is almost 1.10 meters in the width. So let's see here, 1.10 meters or 43 inches. And the interesting thing is, it's pretty wide, yes, but the liter figure is actually a little bit lower than in the iX3. So it's 520 with the iX3, and here in the iX 500 liters. And then here in the height, there we have 29 inches or 74 centimeters. And the length, you can see here, this fits also underneath the cover. And the length here is it's like 1.5 meters or 42 inches. Since we don't have a frunk, we can store the cable here underneath, and also, like, you know, this dog net, for example. And here, this by the way, nice premium feature, that this one here like has this clicking, really fixed. And also what the iX3 does not have here, we have a remote unlock. This is of course a thing I would wish for the iX3, honestly. Or what do you think about this? And then here, total length 1.90 meters, 75 inches. I honestly wonder where this additional liter figure for the iX3 comes from. Must be something in the height, I guess, or in the cutout, because the measures are actually quite impressive. Yeah, must be, I think, probably because it goes lower down. Yeah, that must be it, I think. But still, you can very well use it. This one, of course, you can just push up and remove it. And as for pricing, you have the small battery. It starts just over 80,000 euros, for example. But we want to compare it to the iX3. So we take the comparable battery size. And that one here with the big battery is around 100,000 euros. where it is with the iX3 at 70,000 euros. So you have a 30,000 euro price gap. However, if you now equip this one, because it also has more features like air suspension, rear axis steering and so on, then the price gap is even 40,000 euros, so that you pay like for a full spec BMW iX3. In Germany, for example, you're at like 85, 86,000 euros, and this one in here, as it stands right now, 125,000 euros. That's a lot more money. So the question is now, when we start our road trip, is it worth the extra money? Sport mode.
Woo!
Ooh, that was like 110 to 160. Pretty quick here with
There's
the
some punch.
60 version X-Drive, one on the front, one in the rear, and yeah, more than fast enough. And in the sport mode, the air suspension here, which is adaptive, is also a little bit stiffer. It becomes more comfortable and softer in the personal mode.
It's better when you drive some corners or when you do a lane change, I think.
At least for the passenger.
Yeah, at least for the passenger, yeah. But
So,
is the steering wheel also a little bit stiffer then?
see, should be.
Should be.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But I feel the steering wheel is a little bit heavier in the iX. Yeah.
Comparison to the iX3,
Yes,
yeah, indeed. And here you also cannot set your personal mode in the way you set it with the iX3. So here you're like stuck with personal mode or sport mode, but you cannot define this personal mode, which is now at least finally possible in the iX3.
Yeah.
Main difference here, we have the air suspension.
That's cool. Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
It's, you should get it, yeah.
It is missing with the iX3, I would say, as an optional feature.
But there is maybe bigger brother.
Maybe there's a bigger brother of the iX3 coming up that would feature an air suspension. Yeah, let's see about that very soon. We'll keep you updated. But here, this is something where the iX3 could learn from with the air suspension.
And you have seat cooling.
Yeah, seat
It's
cooling.
very important, yeah.
Yeah, now it's getting hot today already, so we enjoy the seat cooling.
Yeah.
I mean, this one, the iX3 will get the seat cooling at some point. The air suspension, I don't think so. It will get the adaptive suspension.
We have that in our X3, right?
Yeah, exactly. That is already better.
Yes,
So
yeah.
when future orders with the iX3, probably then pick the adaptive suspension plus the seat cooling. So as soon as these features are available. With the air suspension, you have like a little bit more floaty, you know. And here we have the 22-inch wheels, and you still have a better ride than in the 20-inch wheels with the iX3 without the air suspension. You know, so with the iX3, definitely pick the smallest wheels possible. Pick the 20-inch.
Yeah.
That's very, very important for the iX3.
It looks cool with the 22, but 20 is better, even for the efficiency.
Definitely, yeah. And I mean, here at 130 kilometers an hour, like 80 miles an hour.
It's silent. It's fine.
Silent enough.
But it's not more or less silent than in the iX3, right?
Comparable, I would say.
Yeah.
The windows are thicker than in the iX3.
And you feel that with the sun.
Yeah, it's better. It's the window is colder.
Yeah.
So in the iX3, we notice, and also some of our very diligent viewers, as greetings, already told us that it gets quite hot just behind the window in the iX3. And that is something they have to work on. Maybe the window is not thick enough or needs the lamination. The GLC EQ would offer that, and here we don't have the lamination, but the window itself is thicker, and that is a very important thing.
Yeah, and here is the closed roof.
Yeah,
That's
it's also good.
even better, yeah.
So closed roof is better against the sun. Otherwise,
when you live in a hot country or state, then it's needed,
it would still get hotter. You know, the manufacturers always say like, you don't need a cover.
No, it's fine with the what is it here with these lines here when you
but that doesn't do any effect. Yes, they have the filtering in the glass, that is true, but still it will always be cooler when the roof
Trust
is
us, yes. We tested it.
So here lane change also, it's a great drive here on the motorway, on the German Autobahn, definitely. You know, and we will also do these tests, like what is the consumption at 100 kilometers an hour straight, 130 kilometers an hour straight, so 60 miles and 80 miles an hour straight.
Yeah,
and
the
also
weather is really good, 21 degrees.
Yeah,
what is in
conditions.
Fahrenheit? I'm so bad in
like
Fahrenheit.
70, like 20.
It don't make sense. Maybe there can someone explain it.
No,
maybe
it doesn't
there's
make sense.
what is it in English? Eselsbrücke?
Yeah, the problem is that Fahrenheit doesn't make sense in the relation of the
I
temperature.
try to learn it, but it's so hard. Yeah.
Like you can always remember, like 22 degrees Celsius is 72 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah. Okay.
And when you say like in the 90s, then it's 30 Celsius plus.
Okay.
You know, from the motocross races,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
in summer they always say, temperatures they are in the 90s, it's really very hot for the riders and so on, and it's more than 30 degrees, you know.
Is there someone who watched Supercross maybe here? Yeah.
Supercross and motocross fans all thumbs up.
We watched it, yeah.
I hope Kenny will win the championship, of course. So let's see about that here. One more lane change. Oh, by the way, yeah, this one also features here this very elaborated function for the cruise control. So we got to think about that. Let's see, Assist Plus is also offering. There we go. And then I can also do this hands-off driving I do with the iX3.
That's cool, yeah.
So that's pretty cool, you know, and that's really loud, and it also works in a very elaborated way. I'm not sure if does it have like this watching to the mirror? I think so. Yeah.
Sometimes.
Because
when
like
it's empty here, and then.
Yeah, and the iX3 has it, the iX, the 5 Series, the 7 Series. So all of their like.
And it's really good. There's it.
No, yeah, it works. Now here, looking in the side mirror, and then it changes the lane. So yeah, very good drive. So we love the drive here. Biggest difference, air suspension to the iX3.
Yeah.
Then again, the iX3 has the more like the sportier ride. It feels more. You feel more one with the vehicle.
Yeah.
You know.
And it feels lighter. And it is even.
It is.
Right?
Yeah, it's good observation.
A little bit, yeah.
So.
For the passenger, and when you drive very curvy roads, then it's better to drive with the iX3, I think. But when you need some city driving, then you need the air suspension, and then it's better with the iX.
So, yeah, the thing is like about 200-300 kilograms.
Yeah.
This one here is heavier, so good observation by Leah. This is the heavier car, you know, and you do feel that. So the iX3 is a driver's vehicle, and this one he has is more like floaty, heavier, more elaborated ride in that case.
Yeah, also good, yeah.
And first charging stop, plugged in at 15% and directly jumps to 150 kilowatt. Let's see how long we take to get a, let's say, useful charge. But here you clearly see a difference to the BMW iX3, where we started at 400 kilowatt, and here we are now at 140 something. So yeah, this is where the iX3 definitely wins with the new technology. Note that here, by the way, there's in the same station another vehicle loading, which is also a realistic scenario. That's often the case. We couldn't find one where it's not like with another vehicle on the other side. So we are getting here 150, 148. Our car could do more, up to 195 kilowatt. The station should also be able to deliver more, but it could also be that the cable is the limiting factor, but it shouldn't make much difference. It's funny, by the way, because last time it was in winter time, it was really cold, and we were heating up at the charging station, and now we can enjoy some sun.
Sunny.
So it's really warm, like this 22 degrees Celsius, 72 degrees Fahrenheit here. And also here the ID4 is just leaving, so let's see if we can charge a little bit quicker now. But of course the battery now is, you know, a little bit higher percentage. Let's see what happens. So here we're now alone at the station, and that also says it could charge 300 kilowatt, but it's still only doing 135. So at least at this SoC, maybe earlier we could have gotten maybe a little bit more, but I'm not even sure about that. So you see here, it's somewhat limited. I think we can
try it again on our way back, maybe.
Yeah, we can try maybe one more time. If it makes a difference, then we can mention it. But let's also check out here the charging curve, charging info. There we go. I mean, at least it was like kind of stable. You know, it was like one small drop, but it keeps it, you know, between 130 and 150. So you can work with that. Let's take it that way. As long as it's still over 100, and then we'll leave it, I guess. And so far we did here 45 kilowatt hours in 18 minutes. Yeah, at today's time it's rather average. And of course you gotta say that the iX3 can only play out its huge advantage if you have the proper charging station, if you have a 400 kilowatt charging station. And depends on the country, like how rare or how often you can find them actually. And then of course again, like, do you have the charging station for yourself alone, or is there a car next to you? And here I was interested when it does drop below 100 kilowatt, and that just happened. So just over 70%, and then it drops below 100 kilowatts. So I will stop charging now. We're here now at about 30 minutes, and that was 15 to 75% 85% state of charge and 66 kilowatt hours. All right, let's try it again. Here, Ionity station, 350 kilowatt. And let's see how much power we can squeeze out of this one. Oh, and it already starts higher at almost 190 kilowatts, so close to the top peak, the 195. So now we charged some 42 kilowatt hours in 14 minutes. Meanwhile, it dropped to about 150 kilowatts, but yeah, this was clearly then a little bit quicker. Here, over 50% now. Ooh, you know, with the blue light. So in the first try, we had about 45 kilowatt hours in about 19 minutes. Here now, in 19 minutes, we could cover 54 kilowatt hours. So in the same time, it charged about 9 kilowatt hours more because we were here, you know, at the more powerful station. And while Leah is eating a little bit and I do the charging test on the inside, I'm comparing it my laptop, the figures. So like 15 to 75% was 30 minutes with the first charge, where we were a little bit limited. So I'm looking forward to now, you know, now after 30 minutes, where we are then here at this charging station. Tasty?
Yes.
It's like a
It's
like a peanut curry.
Yes.
That's pretty good. Yeah. So you just remembered the first try, 15 to 75 was 30 minutes. So it seems to be, it should go from 74 to 75 any minute basically. 27 minutes. So yeah, I mean, we can say we saved about 3 minutes then that we, you know, had a little bit higher peak. So it's actually not too much, just a little bit. All right, we arrived again and had a quite nice tour. Yeah, was pleasant. Also again with this auto driving, and yeah, let's dig into the figures because yeah, I noted them all down. It's very interesting once again. So the comparison to the iX3 is that the iX3 was about 3 kilowatt hours per 1 kilometers better each in the testing results. That's very interesting. And so we had the 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour test, the 130 kilometers an hour, 80 miles an hour test, and then the overall test, like with all driving situations and so on the long term. And we had the same last time with the iX3. And let's compare it now. So this time, when we zeroed it out at 100 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, we had 19 kilowatt hours in 1 kilometers, 3.3 miles per kilowatt hour, 570 kilometers or 350 miles of real world range at that speed. And at 130 kilometers an hour, 80 miles an hour, 25 kilowatt hours in 1 kilometers, 2.5 miles per kilowatt hour real world range, 440 kilometers an hour, 270 miles. Here at perfect conditions, 22 degrees Celsius and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. More important is, of course, here what is like this overall mix, you know, where we drove motorway, 130 kilometers an hour maximum, sometimes maybe a little bit quicker for overtaken or something, but that's it, 80 miles an hour. But we did that speed whenever it was possible. So that maybe the overall average is once again around 1 kilometer, 60 miles an hour with city and some slower driving and so on. And now we scored on this long term. That was then 23 kilowatt hours on 1 kilometer, 2.7 miles per kilowatt hour, means a real range 480 kilometers, 300 miles on this German Autobahn long-term test. So they say around 500 kilometers, 300 miles, whereas the iX3 in the same conditions had 600 kilometers or 370 miles. So 120 kilometers or 70 miles difference then between the iX and the iX3. However, here this one, 22-inch wheels. With the iX3 we had the 20-inch wheels. For this one here, the 20-inch wheels are also available. And then the results might be a little bit closer indeed. So it's hard to find a lot of iX spec out there with the 20-inch wheels, but that would be something, yeah, very interesting to me if we then could also come closer to these results. So you see, at least when you have the large wheels, you know, there's a big difference then. However, we also did the test with the iX3 with the 22-inch wheels, and then the test results are actually way closer. So let's see here, we had with the 22, like here we had that 19 and 25, and with the iX3 it was, with the bigger wheels, 20 and 25. That was, yeah, actually quite close, but then it was a little bit colder, you know, so indeed, with the same wheel setup, it's of course a little bit then also weather dependent. You always have to check out if it's comparable weather conditions with the thickness, density of the air, and also with the battery, with the temperature and so on. But the bigger difference is definitely in charging. But charging, of course, it always depends on, do you find the suitable charging station that the iX3 can also, play out its strength right there. iX3 had a little bit more comfortable seats, got to say that, softer in the material, quicker charging, yes, and probably a little bit more efficient. Then again, you would have to use the comparable wheels. But I think for 22-inch wheels, the efficiency result here was still pretty good for the iX. And for visitors from the UK or from the US, always very worthwhile visiting, especially, is the Checkpoint Charlie. Why is it called Checkpoint Charlie? Well, there was Alpha, Bravo and Charlie. This was the third checkpoint, that's why it's called Charlie. And this was one of the basically most crucial points also in the Cold War, because in 1961, when the Berlin Wall was built, just a couple of months later, that was basically one of the hottest phases in the Cold War here in Berlin. And just where we stand here right now, there was like an incident with a US diplomat, and then for 16 hours there were Russian and American tanks just facing each other, and the world was on the verge of Third World War. And just after some secret talks between, over secret channels between Khrushchev and Kennedy, actually one by one, the tanks moved away and the situation was solved. But of course, the whole situation was not solved at all, and was just beginning. And of course, for car fans here in Berlin, from an eastern side, it's always very important to see, very interesting to see the Trabant, the so-called Trabi. This has been the Eastern German car, and you had to wait years, even if you ordered one years ago, and it was of course the cheapest possible in production, and today it has become an icon. It's not that durable, so but at least as a showcase, it has definitely its own character, its own charm. And now let's drive back again. So the initial question was, what can the iX3 learn from this one? Yeah, they need to offer the seat cooling. That's coming up, hopefully. And air suspension is something that we do miss in the iX3. That's really cool,
especially in the city, or bumpy roads,
Yeah, so, but the iX3 will not get that, but at least the adaptive suspension. And when the iX3 gets the adaptive suspension, which is not adaptive but not air, then we can also test that one for you and see how that one compares, definitely. But then the question was also, is this one here 30 or 40,000 euros more worth than the iX3? And the clear answer is
no.
Yeah.
It's a very, very nice vehicle, and I love the ride, but it's not worth it when it's even more
expensive.
Expensive.
That's really the thing. I think that is also maybe the biggest surprise, or the most we have to go left. The most crucial point, that the biggest step forward is that you get, let's say, an equal experience and the same or even more range at a much lower price. That is actually the biggest step forward. And faster charging, of course. Yeah, so definitely better EV tech, but you gotta say that if we had the 20-inch wheels here with the iX, maybe not the same, but I think we could score some more equal consumption figures.
I thought
here.
It was more bad than.
Yeah. I would have expected that it's actually worse. So already good efficiency from this one here, considering we had the 22-inch wheels and very wide wheels. And the 20-inch wheels would also be the very narrow ones, and I think we could score some almost similar consumption figures with that. So then
but if you want this car, you can pick it.
Very nice car.
Very nice car.
Still a very nice car. So our suggestion would rather be, if you order new, doesn't really make sense, in comparison to the iX3. But if you say, I have to wait a year for the iX3, and my dealer has one of these here used, just standing on the yard at a super, super decent price, that
then go
might
for it.
make sense then.
Yeah.
So, I I think that was also like a good finding here of this review. Tell me what you think about iX3 versus iX. And of course, we will keep you now updated with the competitors. We will soon, after doing this video here, drive the Volvo EX60. We will do a long haul test with the Mercedes GLC EQ. We will make a long haul test actually to pick up another iX3 and make the comparison test head to head.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone is waiting for that.
Yeah.
iX3 versus GLC
And we too.
EQ.
Yeah.
And we too.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and we also...
Because I'm a huge GLC fan. Yeah.
Yes, a huge GLC fan, so that comparison test
Maybe I can convince him.
might turn out to be very expensive. Also in leasing rate, definitely. And we also want to take a look at the updated...
CLA and the CLA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
CLA, like, sedan long haul test is also coming up. And we will also, maybe it will take some months, but I want to take a look once again at the Xpeng models, the Chinese competition, because they have updated G6 and G9. See what the Chinese can do against like this new European.
Sorry for the jacket here. Yeah. When
That's
Thomas
not-
is cutting
yeah.
the film here, then
Yeah,
he's like,
yeah.
"Ah,
No
Leah,
jackets in
your
the back seat.
jacket
Yeah.
there."
Yeah, looking forward to your feedback here to this another new road trip episode. And
Yes.
yeah,
Do you want to see more? Even me on the passenger side? Yeah. Do you like that?
Yeah, or Leah driving in. I mean, this time like she was driving like before recording,
Yeah,
and she
yeah.
was like, basically giving so much insight from her driving before that we said like it wasn't really that necessary to
Yeah.
just the driving part one more time again, because she told about her experience while she was driving earlier, so to speak.
Yeah.
But of course, next time we can also make a part again where she like literally takes the scene on camera live, of course. So whatever you like to see best, give us your feedback, and thank you so much for your support.
Bye.
Time for the next video.